765.
Good evening, and thank you for joining the National Hispanic Cannabis Council's webinar spotlighting my home state of New Jersey. We are going to be speaking, we have a really fantastic panel. I'm very excited about this one. We've got Rosemarie, Moyeno, Matos. I'm going to introduce her in a minute. Osbert, Orduña, and two fantastic folks from the CRC, Commissioner Maria del Cid-Kosso and Wesley McWhite. So I just want to give a real quick introduction to what the NHCC is and what we're trying to do here. The National Hispanic Cannabis Council really is an educational institution. It's a nonprofit focusing on educating the Hispanic and Latino communities on cannabis and what that means for them. So both as a product in their lives, on the medical research on the topic, but also on the legal and economic aspects of these markets. As cannabis is legalized in many states, including New Jersey, it means the introduction of a new regulated marketplace. So as our Latino friends want to join the market, we want to help make sure they understand what the opportunities are and what the parameters are. We've done these webinars in a few other states, and they've been a great success. So really excited to be doing it here. So first, I would like to introduce Maria del Cid-Kosso. Would you please tell us? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for the invitation. And again, buenas tardes, good evening. I'd like to thank the National Hispanic Cannabis Council for your continuous support and partnership with the CRC. And I'm very eager to be here and share some of the updates, one of the latest updates that the commissioner has been working on, and to also learn from you guys, from the panel, and some of the questions that we may get from the public today. So again, thank you for having me.
And also we're joined by the CRC's Director of Diversity and Inclusion, Wesley McWhite.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to the National Hispanic Cannabis Council for this opportunity to collaborate and to educate. And I couldn't say it better than Commissioner Maria del Cid-Kosso, that we're here to educate as much as we are here to learn about what it's really going to take to make sure that the Hispanic or Latino population is well represented in this very diverse market already. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Also, one of our local chapter directors, Osbert Orduña of the Cannabis Place.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for being here with us tonight. My name is Osbert Orduña. I'd like to say thank you to Commissioner del Cid-Kosso and Director McWhite for yet again joining us here at the National Hispanic Cannabis Council as we try to get the word out and provide accurate and true information to the community at large. I also come to you as not only the co-chair of the Tri-State National Hispanic Cannabis Council chapter, but also as a conditional license holder in New York and New Jersey, and bring that aspect to the table as well. So thank you, everyone.
Saving the best for last, my colleague, fellow lawyer, Rosemarie Moyeno Matos.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. My name is Rosemarie Moyeno Matos. I'm an attorney actively practicing in this space since 2018. I've represented clients that applied for ATC licenses in 2018 and 2019. Currently, I represent numerous clients applying for adult use cannabis business licenses since the opportunity became available in December of 2021. I'm also the East Orange Board of Cannabis Control attorney. And last but not least, I'm a member of the National Hispanic Cannabis Council Tri-State Chapter's Executive Board. And I'm so glad to be part of this panel today.
Well, and I am Jennifer Cabrera. I'm a partner with Vicente LLP, formerly known as Vicente Sederberg LLP. We've shortened our name. And I am based in Union County, New Jersey, and focus on cannabis industry as an attorney. So I am on the board of directors of the National Hispanic Cannabis Council, and we have a legal committee which focuses on educating our members on what are the opportunities in cannabis across the country. what does the industry look like? What do the regulations look like? So we are focusing today on New Jersey, and I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Del Cid-Kosso and Director McWhite for their presentation.
All right, so this is the NJCRC, New Jersey's Cannabis Regulatory Commission. And so we have a number of slides that we want to run through very quickly so that we can get to the robust panel discussion that we're going to have. You don't have to take notes. We are going to send the PDF version to the National Hispanic Council so that I'm sure everyone that is registered will get a copy of this as well. So my name is Wesley McWhite. As we have said earlier, I'm the director of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. It is an office, really the people's office. Our job is written in statute. It is to promote the cannabis industry. It is to educate the public about the rules and regulations to be a part of the cannabis industry, and to outreach to underrepresented minority groups, women, disabled veterans who would like to be in the cannabis industry here in New Jersey. We have some benchmarks as well that we have to meet to make sure a certain amount of licenses go to certified minority, women's, and disabled veteran-owned businesses. And we're happy to say that we're beating those benchmarks. And Maria is going to talk about that in just a few minutes. All right, so these are some things that you're going to see in this slideshow once you get it, but we want to talk about what happens before you apply. We want to talk about our new priority application designation matrix, the types of licenses that you can apply for right now. What are some of the required documents? What exactly are cure letters, the application scoring measure, municipal authority, some market challenges, ancillary businesses, and resources. So our priority applicants, there are 3 different types of priority designations that you can apply for today. And that is diversely owned, social equity businesses, and impact zone businesses. Diversely owned businesses are certified minority, women, and disabled veteran-owned businesses, certified as such by the New Jersey Department of Treasury. Social equity businesses could be twofold. It is individuals who have past marijuana convictions, or someone who lives in an economically disadvantaged area of 5 of the last 10 years, or impact zone businesses. There is paperwork that you have to submit with your application to prove either your social equity status, and for your diversely owned business status, you would need to submit that certification of your minority status to the CRC as your proof. So social equity, this is our new application prioritization. I think this is the first time we've talked about this publicly outside of our public meeting, but social equity businesses remain as sort of that first in line to review applications. Applications are submitted on a rolling basis. There is no deadline to applications, and now testing laboratory applicants will be viewed first in line with social equity businesses, and so forth and so on, as you see diversely owned business applicants, impact zone businesses, applicants with bonus points, and then all other applicants. Please keep in mind that conditional applicants and then conversion applicants and now annual applicants will be viewed sort of in that first in time. And then business applications are always reviewed before standard business applications. So what has changed? What has changed is originally all annual business licenses or conversions were reviewed at the bottom of that list. Now annuals, micro businesses, and annual standard businesses will be viewed first in time according to their priority designation. So if you are applying as a social equity business micro annual, you will be seen first right after conditionals to convert to annual. And this is just another breakdown. All of this is on our website as well, so we'll be sending in the links. So as you can see, all of the annual micro business and standard businesses are now with their designated priority designation. So before you apply, this is the most favorite asked question of me when we are out doing presentations and interacting with the public. What's the first thing that you should do? The first thing that you should do is to learn the laws and regulations. On our websites are primers, our resources, our initial rules, our requests for applications. These are handy resources that you can literally print out or view on our website or bring up on your phone so that you may learn all of what it will take to apply for a business license. Other things here, as you can see, understanding business classifications and, like we said, our priority designations, developing a business plan, which is a part of your application process, registering a business entity and a secure website domain, opening up a business bank account, securing business insurance, and one of my favorites, this is why it's in red, is scouting locations and learning municipal zoning approval processes. So the types of applications, as we talked about earlier, are conditional licenses, conditional to annual conversions, and then annual licenses. So if you are applying as a conditional applicant, you have a certain amount of time after awarded by the commission to then apply for conversion so that you may eventually be awarded your annual license. With a conditional route, you do not need municipal approval just yet or site control. So you don't need a lease signed at that moment that you submit your conditional license. But a part of your conditional conversion application submission, you have to have municipal approval and your site control. Folks that go straight to annual is what we nicknamed it. Our straight to annual folks have their municipal approval already and their site control, and they want to just go ahead and submit everything all at once. Think of our conditional license as sort of your first view from the CRC and more of a low barrier way for you to get one of your first approvals from us through a conditional phase. Required documents, we kind of went over this, entity disclosure forms on the application, signed affidavits, releases, and waivers, personal history disclosures, and your social equity business attestation, which is also on our website and will include with this packet of information that we send over to NHCC. It is a signed and notarized piece of paper. It's 2 pages, or actually 4 pages. On the 3rd and 4th page are the documentations that you would need to prove your social equity status. Facts about our cure letters. So the great thing about New Jersey is that we are not rejecting applications on the basis of deficiencies. In other states, if you were missing a piece of identification, if you didn't get the front and back, if you forgot to submit portions of your business plan, or if you were missing other business entity information, your application was rejected. More than likely, it was a lottery process and you would lose out on the opportunity of receiving your license. Here in New Jersey, if you are missing information, if there is a deficiency in your application, after our QC or quality control review, if we find those deficiencies, we will send you a cure letter to help you or to indicate to you what is missing so that the portal can be open to you and you can submit those documentations to us. Best tips that we can give you to avoid cure letters, because it adds on to your review time and process, is to take your time and completely fill out the online application. You know, when you sign into other application portals, let's say you're filling out an application for a credit card, you can't see all of what is required of the application, but through our portal, you can make a free account now and see the application itself from beginning to end and all of the necessary components that you would need to submit a successful application to the CRC. Read through our document checklist carefully, another resource we are going to give you all, and then make sure all the paperwork you upload, including the back of your driver's license, is clear and easy to read. App scoring methodology. So we do not score as we did back in our RFA days, but this is kind of an internal scoring rubric or methodology for us. We're not scoring you against other applicants or licenses, but we are scoring you for completeness. And this is a completeness breakdown of the number of points that you can accumulate through your QC and your scoring process. Municipal authority. I know this is a great hot button topic, and I hope to get into it a little bit later. But the statute allows for municipalities to set up their local businesses how they see fit. So they can put caps on licenses, they can set their own fees, they can zone cannabis businesses how they see fit, and they can prevent certain licenses from operating in their municipality. So there are kind of went over that. They also have the ability to enact up to a 2% transfer tax, and they can pass and update their ordinances at any time. So coming from African-American communities, Black and Brown communities, Hispanic communities, we have folks that we know that have businesses who are not so privy to cannabis, that don't want to jump into applying for a license. There are still so many non-plant touching opportunities that are available for the Hispanic and Latino population. One that is not on here is translation services. That will be an amazing ancillary non-plant touching business. But as you can see, there's going to need to be an ecosystem of businesses to support cannabis businesses. Think of cannabis businesses as any other small local business that is there to improve the neighborhood, to improve the necessary ancillary business market. And these are just some ideas of what folks can get involved in using their existing business structure or starting a brand new business. Market challenges we are aware of and working hard through our interagency work groups to address, that is access to capital. Because it is not legal federally, your banking options are very thin. Municipal and zoning approvals is another barrier, presents itself to be another barrier to minority applicants getting in. We certainly would want to see more municipalities opting in, and also a lifting on caps and low fees. We really don't want to see exorbitantly high fees at the local level, and finding real estate. But there is some state-sponsored help, and there's more to come. That is through our EDA grants. Those are at the tune of $150,000 and $250,000 grants. They were approved last year, the tail end of last year, and announced by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority of New Jersey. And so those are the folks that handled all of the COVID funds, and they are looking to not just provide through this grant program, which is a pilot program, but introducing more access to capital cannabis-specific products for emerging businesses in New Jersey. And New Jersey Business Action Center's Cannabis Training Academy, we are working with the New Jersey Business Action Center to launch a first of its kind free technical assistance program that will walk people through filling out a successful application through and submitting it to the CRC. This is free. We'll drop the links in the chat for you to sign up. It is not launched yet, but so glad to have a partner like Commissioner Maria del Cid-Kosso, and making sure that we launch on day one Spanish translation for all of the course materials that will be provided through the technical assistance program. It is a 10-week course, which is going to have live instructors. You'll be hooked up with mentors. You'll have video tutorials, downloadable resources, and you can learn at your own pace as well. And so just several more resources for folks that want to learn how to fill out an application to start a business in New Jersey. You can always go to nj.gov/cannabis. Starting or registering a business, that link is there. Getting your diversity certifications and general business support. You should probably all try to lean on business networks already, because business networks like Chambers of Commerce and like a National Hispanic Council are preparing folks that are tied to their networks, that are tethered to their networks, to fill out successful applications for licensure and eventually support their businesses. Talked about this, the New Jersey Business Action Center Cannabis Academy will be no-cost technical assistance. It will target social equity, legacy, impact zone, diversely owned, and micro business categories. Access to capital, as we said, maximum grant amount will be $100,000 and $250,000 for social equity, and we'll send some more details on that as well. There's no place for you to apply yet, but we will be working closely with New Jersey EDA when application launch becomes closer or gets closer to us. Legacy is legal. We are crafting new relationships, establishing new relationships with those that have operated in the illicit market, those that have, before prohibition, were your street vendors, the folks that you would call up. We want them to be a part of this industry in a safe and equitable way. And so we are meeting with legacy folks that are all over the state. Through our technical assistance program, we are crafting a legacy to legal program for folks that want to go legit, who want to get a license here in New Jersey. And it's just an exciting time for all. And we are appreciating all of their feedback that they have been providing for us so far. And I'll certainly drop my information So if you know someone that has operated or has operated in the legacy space and wants to be a part of the new regulated industry, I'd love to have that conversation with them. For additional recreational business applications, the New Jersey Office of Innovation has some customizable panels for you to walk through for different types of businesses, whether you want to open up a restaurant or a food truck. They now have an easy to use cannabis starter kit on their website as well. And so now I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Maria del Cid-Kosso to talk about some Hispanic data number updates, adult use rule changes, consumption areas, license caps, and restriction deadlines. Commissioner?
Thank you, Wesley, and thank you for a lot of important information you just shared. Next slide, please. So I just want to give you an update on the recreational business applications that the Commission has received up to date. So we received over a total of 1,647 applications. All applications have been have started the review process, and only 51 applications have yet to advance for that completeness review that Wesley mentioned earlier. Next slide. There are more conditionals, which is a good news. Some good news. More conditionals that are applying to convert to annuals. So 162 conditional conversions have been submitted to the CRC. Next slide. I also wanted to just share and to highlight that, as you can see, out of the 1,647 applications, the leading license type is Class 5 retail at 940 applications, and the second leading type of license is cultivation at Class 1 at 415. We also have information for you here for diversity owned businesses. Our numbers are 1,179, so that's 72%. Social equity, 413, so 25%, and impact zones, 706, which is roughly about 43%. Next slide. And I think this is very important for not only this group, but we are tracking this information under Wesley's office. And as you can see, approved licensees, persons of Hispanic, was identified as Hispanic or Latino. We have approved 5 of them that are annual. Those that were approved for conversion to annual were 4 applications or licensees, and 277 were approved for conditional. Again, you can see the percentages on the bottom for those that were approved. We have a lot of work to do, and that is why it is important to have these conversations, not only with the National Hispanic Council, but we are doing stakeholder engagement with with the Office of the Resident Inclusion. So definitely there's a lot of work that we have to do to bring those numbers up. I also wanted to share some information, some data. It's preliminary data, but that is not on this slide, but I do want to share that for majority-owned Hispanic businesses, 6 out of 72 are majority-owned license holders, and that's about 8.3%. That exceeds the national average of cannabis business ownership, but we know that we still have a lot of work to do. We're going to have more accurate numbers on those majority owners in the next quarterly report that Director McWhite is going to present to the CRC board in April. Next slide. New rules. I know that a lot of you have questions about this, and it is a very lengthy document that's on our website. I just wanted to cover some, very high level what's changed. The rules have authorized all 6 classes of cannabis businesses, adding 3 new license classes, and that is wholesale, distributors, and delivery service. Also, under the new rules, the rates for social equity excise fees were established and require notification from the CRC in November of each year. Now also our rules include a description of a good faith effort for cannabis businesses that are required to hire individuals living in EDAs or economically disadvantaged areas or with past marijuana convictions. The new rules also provide examples of municipal behaviors that would violate local government ethics law. And again, I do want to emphasize that we just didn't adopt these rules overnight because the CREAM Act actually required the CRC to adopt initial rules, and those were adopted in August of 2021. And then we had a public comment period that closed on September 30th of last year. And we were, the CRC had compiled and responded to a lot of those comments that we got from the public. And again, thank you for all the comments that we got from all of you. And the board finally adopted the proposed changes in February of 2023. And these new regulations were published in the New Jersey Register and went into effect yesterday. Cannabis consumption areas. I think this is a very interesting topic for many, and a lot of folks have a lot of questions about cannabis consumption areas. Again, I want to emphasize that we are conducting a public comment period right now, and that ends on March 18th of this year. And again, after that date, the CRC is going to do the same thing that we did with the other proposed rules. We're going to review those comments. We're going to respond to those comments, and then the rules will not go into effect until it goes through through the entire process. Some very high level language that is covered under cannabis consumption areas is that it may be indoors or outdoors, one cannabis consumption area per cannabis entity. It requires approval from the CRC and the municipality. The fees for these type of licenses is licenses is $1,000 application fee for a micro and $5,000 for standard retailers. The endorsement is valid for 1 year. Dispensaries may not sell food, and that was set in the statute. However, the CRC did add language in the proposed regs that patrons may bring their own food or order food like Uber Eats or DoorDash. There will be no sale of food or alcohol or tobacco in these cannabis businesses. Next slide. So Chairwoman Moyeno and I sit on the Permitting and Licensing Committee, one of the CRC standing committees, and I wanted to bring to your awareness these recent restriction deadlines. So the CREAM Act, which is the law, established a statewide cap of 37 cannabis class 1 licenses for a 24-month period. The ATCs were included in that limit. Micro businesses, cultivators do not count towards that limit. That restriction actually expired on the 22nd of last month. And it is within the commission's scope of authority to make periodic evaluations on the number of each class of cannabis establishments, including reviewing the limit on the number of cannabis cultivator licenses based on the state's market demands. Next slide. To give you some idea of where we are with operational cultivation facilities, we have 6 that are medical only. We have 0 that are adult use only. We have 11 that are doing both. So that brings us to a total of 17. So total operation canopy right now in New Jersey is 418,000 square feet that we have in the state of New Jersey. And again, we have issued adult use cultivation licenses but are not operational yet. And we are hoping that, they do come online very shortly. Next slide. New Jersey has the fewest number of cultivation licenses among 15 states analyzed, with only 17 operational cultivation licenses. And just to give you a little bit more context, California, who happens to have the oldest legalized medical market, has a total of 6,881 licenses, and that includes adult use and medical. The nationwide average for adult use state is 889 cultivation licenses. So that means that New Jersey will need nearly 850 more licenses to meet that national average. Population-wise, New Jersey has 1 license for every 197,000 residents, far below the national average of 1 license for 31,000 residents. Next slide. So because this is a developing market, and the committee has recommended not to impose a statewide cap on cultivation licenses. And, again, our job is to continue to monitor the market demands, and we will reevaluate the statewide cap when needed. And that for the February 22nd deadline also applied to the next item of discussion, which is the vertically integrated licenses. This slide summarizes what was in effect prior to the 22nd. So right now we have 12 operational vertically integrated entities in the state of New Jersey. But prior to the 22nd, any owner, stockholder, officer, or director of any corporation or any other person engaged in the retail sale of cannabis items could not to not engage in cultivation, testing, manufacturing, wholesaling, or transport in bulk of any cannabis item. So what exactly changed after the 22nd, you may ask? Well, now cannabis license holders are able to hold more than one type of license as described in this slide. And again, we're going to share this slide deck with the Cannabis Council. So for those who are viewing us today, can have a copy of what they're seeing in front of them. But this is what they're able to do or are authorized by the commission after that deadline of the 22nd of last month. And again, thank you for hosting us, and we are happy to take any questions after the other panelists.
All right, thank you. That was fantastic. I want to go into a few topics that we had lined up for today. And first, I wanted to go to the topic of municipal approval, which is, I think, the bane of everyone's existence in the New Jersey cannabis industry. So with that inflammatory remark, I'll turn it over to Osbert. How's it been finding local approval in New Jersey?
Sounds like a setup.
Sorry.
So through our members, in addition to my own experience, finding finding a location. Let's take it back a step. Finding a viable real estate parcel that meets zoning requirements in and of itself is a massive hurdle because of the lack of municipalities that have actually opted in for cannabis and for cannabis dispensaries, which is the particular line that of the cannabis supply chain that we're in. Whether it's, for example, zoning boards not wanting to vote on a cannabis ordinance because they're waiting on getting some clarity from, let's say, their city council or something like that, to an experience that we had just recently with a zoning board that, the municipal process is laid out. It has 4 steps. These are the 4 things that you have to get, right? For example, zoning officer, planning board approval, cannabis control board approval, and ultimately the city council resolution. And that's what's in the ordinance for this particular municipality, is that 4-step process. Come to find out that the planning board had added in a backdoor meeting that had occurred in March of 2022, where 4 individuals were present. This conversation was not on the public record, was not shared or posted anywhere. This procedural change was not disclosed to the public. And so come to find out that now, in March 2023, the actual true measure of what counts and what gets a pin in a map in this particular municipality as a recognized business is not the fact that you went through the 4-step process that's in the ordinance, but now they want you to also go and have pulled your permits for construction. And that is what the planning board deems as you being a true entity. And until said time, you're considered a phantom entity that doesn't exist. Well, that's a little bit of a funny comment, considering that businesses that are going, let's say, through a conditional approval or through the annual licensing approval need to get municipal approval from the municipal entity in order to be recognized in their process, in order to submit a conversion application, or if they're an annual applicant, in order to submit their annual application. Nowhere does it say pulling of permits is the final, arbiter of this process. And what's really interesting with that is, hypothetically speaking, let's say that I leased a space that was a quote unquote vanilla box space, and the only thing I needed to do was hang my sign on the front door and paint the walls to whatever color I wanted, and I never needed to pull a permit. What would happen then? Well, according to this particular municipality, you would never exist if you didn't pull a permit. And so those are the challenges that are being dealt with, whether it's inactive planning boards and regulatory bodies at the municipal side, or overly active bodies within the municipal process that are really dictating things that are not in black and white. And I'm a military person. I'm a Marine, and one thing I loved about the Marine Corps was everything was in black and white. If you had a question, you could go to a procedure or a manual or something and look up the process in black and white, and it was clear and it was there for everyone to see, not only for those to see that have special access or special relationships. That's the problem with the municipal process right now.
And I think that's, and I'll turn over to you in a second, Rosemarie, but what I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle for small businesses in New Jersey. So the CRC has actually been fantastic in getting clear rules out from the get-go. Like when you compare it to some of our neighboring states, like you guys got rules out there. It was clear what's in place. Now we have revised rules. We'll know when those come in place. You may disagree with some provisions, but at least it's clear. It's the local approval process, which is necessary because you need local resolution of support, as well as your property to get your license. And that is a very murky area. Rosemarie, are you finding the same sort of thing?
Yes. So, I wear two hats in this conversation, right? Because I represent applicants, but I also represent a municipality. So I can look at it from both sides. I would say overwhelmingly the issue, I was hired by East Orange in May of last year to help them amend their ordinance and launch their cannabis board, right? And so I think the biggest thing that a lot of towns have experienced is it is a new, and just the same for applicants, it is a new industry, and they've just been trying to navigate the waters with what information they had available, right? So under the rules, they were given a lot of authority to set, zoning and license fees and whether or not they're going to have a board and what the process is for applying. But a lot of them didn't have, a lot of background in how to do that. So I also think that the other major problem from the municipal perspective is that, as Osbert said, the biggest problem is that so many towns are opted out that there's not many places to go, right? So that limits the availability of property, but also it inundates the towns that are allowing for it. So at this point, it's funny because in 2018 and 2019, to me, the biggest, I don't think just to me, to anybody practicing in this area, the biggest challenge was access to capital, right? I would say today, you could probably get access to capital before you can get a resolution or find a property that's zoned for the type of cannabis business that you're looking to operate. And it is because, 60-something% of the towns are still opted out. The ones that are opted in have either they have caps on their licenses and they've maxed out the number of resolutions that they're willing to give. And so that leads a lot of people to towns like Jersey City, where I practice a lot. I'm not, complaining, but they don't have a cap, right? And so people that have tried in other places and were not successful are now migrating towards Jersey City and other towns that might not have a cap. So I would say, at least with respect to East Orange, because I had been in this space for so long and I saw some of the issues, that myself and my colleagues and my clients experience in other towns, I tried to make it an all-inclusive approach. So one of the things that we did is we held a very similar to like the RFA process. We opened up an applications period and we closed it. And I was very vocal about doing it that way because at that point, there had been so many people in queue waiting for the process that it was going to be unfair if we just awarded them on they have a cap and they're not giving out more resolutions and licenses available. So it would have been really unfair to all of the applicants if we just awarded them on a first come first serve basis, because obviously there were people waiting in line for a year or more to do this. So we opened up a period, we closed it. But even then, we've experienced challenges because every day something comes up that you can't anticipate, right? And so you got to work with what you have. So I would say, my hope is that as more towns open up, and I know a lot of them have been slow to do it because they're waiting to see what happens, to their neighbors. But my hope is that as more towns open up, some of this pressure, to find property and to secure resolutions will be alleviated because there's more opportunities that there are not right now.
Yeah. And I have to see more towns opting in because I think that will make a difference. So just moving on, I wanted to, Osbert, do you have some?
I was just saying, and that's an important piece of this conversation, right? The narrative needs to change, and municipalities and their elected officials need to recognize that, the coming and the opportunity for licensed businesses to actually come into the municipality. What does that do? Well, that brings economic opportunity to your community. That's economic empowerment to your residents in your community. One thing that we didn't really cover is everyone in New Jersey has to sign a labor peace agreement. And although that does not guarantee that the businesses will unionize, it does guarantee that the unions will have access to those businesses and their workforces and will potentially unionize. And that means true living wages, healthcare benefits, retirement plans. Again, an influx of actually good careers and good jobs coming to communities that otherwise would not exist or come to communities if it were not for cannabis. And that needs to be an important part of the conversation.
Wesley?
Hey, if I can just add here, so from the CRC standpoint, we are in constant conversations with municipalities that have opted in and have not opted in. And we've been having some promising conversations that I do want to say. There are some great municipalities that are doing some great work, but understanding that the barriers that some municipalities that have put at the local level, as we said here, box out small businesses, particularly minority owned, women owned, and then an intersection of those women and minority owned and disabled veteran and small businesses. And so we're hopeful that more municipalities will opt in, because as we said earlier, they can change their ordinance at any time. We are working on a resource document to put on our website. We're almost across the finish line with it, that list out all of the opted in municipalities as well as their ordinances. And it's fun, interactive through our Office of Information and Technology. I also want to add that, these stories, they're some are heartbreaking, some are frustrating, but I also want to encourage potential cannabis businesses to talk to their legislators at the state level as well, because you all are part of the business community just like any other business. And while the statute, not the rules, but the statute really ties the hands of the CRC, we do have municipal guidance on our website, and we just want to continue to encourage you all to not just bring those to us, which we will hear those stories, can't do much about them, but we also want to encourage you all to talk to your legislators just as any other normal business, small business in New Jersey can as well.
That's a key point, which is that this is in the statute, the requirement of municipal control and local approval. So the CRC's hands are completely tied here, so it has to come from the legislature. Hopefully we'll see some change. I do want to skip forward. So the delivery guide, now we have rules for delivery. Rosemarie, I believe you had a question that comes up often with your clients.
Yes. So one of the things that I get questioned a lot on is the need for the Class 6 delivery license if you're a retailer. So we know that if you hold a Class 5 retail license, you can do home delivery for yourself. The question that I get a lot is, can you do home delivery for other Class 5 cannabis retailers without that Class 6 license?
And Wesley, I can take that question. So the answer is no. And I do want to make a distinction. Under the Jake Honix law, the current ATCs are able to deliver medical cannabis to patients. And then under the CREAM Act, ATCs in any operational dispensary can deliver any adult use cannabis to any consumer. But they do have to submit an SOP to the CRC before they want to start that. And then we will have to approve that. But for the delivery license is more specific to those standalone delivery services that don't have a retail, but they just want to provide delivery service, like let's say like an Uber Eats, for example, or an Uber. Folks are going to need to apply for that type of license. And I just want to note that the CRC has not issued a notice of application for that just yet. But again, there is a distinction between, the Jake Honix and the medical cannabis, and then what current operators can actually do under the CREAM Act.
Do we have could you provide a rough time of year when we could see an RFA for those?
A notice of application for the delivery. So our rules just went through yesterday, so I don't have a time frame, but I wouldn't say it would pass. It will be any time past 2023.
Okay, so maybe late summer or fall it could possibly happen. Okay, so if you are a class 5 retail holder, you can deliver your own products though, right? Just not anyone else's.
Correct.
Awesome. All right, and also a lot of the conditional license holders are needing extensions. Rosemarie.
Actually, that's a question I've been getting a lot the last couple of weeks because everybody's getting these emails from the CRC saying, hey, your license expires in 60 days or your license expires in 45 days. So I've been asked a lot from clients, when should you submit your request for an extension? And is there an opportunity to request a specific amount of time, or is the CRC going to be awarding them in 45-day increments as they have been? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we just issue actually some guidance on how to make those extension requests. It is posted on our website. We actually sent out the same guidance document to all the applicants. So they are reminded that they're able to request an extension. So the max amount of days that they can request for an extension is 45 days. So we are going to be doing it in increments of 45 days. And we are encouraging applicants to submit their extension request at least 15 days prior to their deadline. Do not wait until the very last minute. And the reason why I say this is because what we've seen is, we have an applicant that submits an extension request for 45 days, and then the committee who is, reviewing these extension requests need additional information. So then our licensing office is going to request information from that applicant. And it could take several days for a response to get to the committee. So we do ask that please look into your deadlines, keep an eye on that. I know the current system is sending out reminders to applicants about, how long do they have until their license expires.
And if I may just add to that, with respect to your request, right? Because the CRC has said, okay, we have these are the factors that we're going to consider, right? When you submit your request, right? And these are the things that we're not going to consider. Are the applicants expected to submit supporting documentation? For example, let's say like in East Orange right now, like I said, we opened up an applications period. However, the council has not awarded any resolutions as of today. So for the ones that have applications that are about to expire, do they need to submit any proof that they have an application pending, or, what sort of documentation should they be including with the request?
So with previous extension requests, we have seen similar situations like the one that you're describing. Some of them have submitted to the committee a copy of the local application that is pending, so that we know that it was submitted, but it's still under review at the local level. So a copy of that is helpful, or any communication, for instance, an email with the local attorney saying, we met on this day, but we're following up on our application at the local level. Those type of documents are very helpful, so that we understand that there is progress being made for that extension request.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say with the 45-day extension, we are requiring applicants to submit a mobilization plan. So if you are approved for that extension, you have to submit a mobilization plan within 15 days to the CRC, stating like, this is the plan that I have to become compliant in the next 45 days.
Okay.
I have a question along those lines, if I may. What happens if basically you've worked through the process and done the background and done all of that stuff, but you still haven't, in essence, completed the process, and you received an email for one of those extensions? I mean, what are you? I guess you're kind of like in between, right? Because you're not across the finish line, but you're kind of running out on time for your conditional license. So what happens in that aspect? Do you still submit the extension, even though basically the process is done from the applicant side?
So I want to be careful about some of the responses that we can provide as an agency, but what I do would like a scenario-based response. But what I can say is just to be very transparent with your contact inside of the CRC. whoever your investigator at that point, you should have an investigator or a compliance officer that has been dialoguing with you. You can always call us at our info desk to find out who, if you've been assigned just yet to someone inside of the CRC. But as always, I think the blanket rule here is to always err on the side of caution with disclosing what's happening along the way and updating the CRC about where you are in the process, as Maria said, the Commissioner Del Cid-Kosso said.
Now, one question that we have gotten is, what does the process look like for the actual application of cannabis worker license, or I should say cannabis worker identification? What is, there's fingerprinting involved, there's background, all that. What does that timeline look like generally? Is that like a couple of weeks or a couple of, months? Where does that?
It just really depends. Again, you want to check in with your investigator about specific application timelines. But what I will say is, when your investigator or compliance officer reaches out to you, to respond to them as soon as possible. Many of them, all of them really reach out through email. If they don't get a response through email, they're calling the contact number. So I want to encourage you all to make sure that the contact number that you have listed throughout your application process is up to date and working. But in some instances, we have seen where the applicant has delayed the process because they have not secured the fingerprinting and submitted information for the background check. So again, I want to encourage with the response that just to always reach out to us, reach out to your compliance investigations officer. If you don't have one yet, you can always reach out to our licensing department or our info to get that information.
And the final part of that is, if a person, for example, hypothetically, a person worked for an ATC, had a cannabis worker identification, left that position, turned in their card, and now is looking to go into another cannabis business in the industry, does that mean that they're potentially fast tracked because they had a license, a cannabis worker ID, or do they start from scratch?
Oh, Osbert, I love your very technical question. It's because you know what? Osbert is going to make sure he dots his I's and crosses his T's. And I just really honor and respect that about you. I will get an answer to that question. I don't think I've ever heard that question before. And I don't think we prepared for that question. So I will get you an answer back to that. That is a great question.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, because we're coming towards the ends of our time, I just do want to cover the fact that now applicants can apply for vertical licenses. Now, this is obviously not of interest to everyone because you need quite a bit of money to have a vertically integrated cannabis business. But what does that mean? How many licenses can you get right now? One cultivation, one manufacturing, one retail, and one delivery. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah. Going back to my last slide, and again, we'll send the slides over to you guys. But as of last month, any cannabis license holder can actually concurrently hold one cannabis cultivator, one cannabis manufacturer, and one cannabis retail, and one cannabis delivery license. And they can also concurrently hold one cannabis wholesale license and one cannabis distributor license. And only the expanded ATCs may concurrently hold a cannabis cultivator license, a cannabis manufacturing license, a cannabis retail license, including additional cannabis retail licenses for each satellite dispensary, and a cannabis delivery license or a cannabis wholesale license and a cannabis distributor license. So right now, a Class 5 retail is not allowed to have another retail location or a second retail location.
So a retail license gets you one location only, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you can't apply for more than one retail license.
You can't.
Okay.
At this point, yeah.
And there is now language in the revised regulations that are up into public comment that's been in since the last revision about members of an immediate family being limited in how many licenses they can have. So if me and my sister could not each apply for our own retail license. Is that accurate?
Correct. So the short answer is that, they can be owners in the same facility, in the same entity. But to your point, union sister cannot apply to two different licenses per se. But if you guys are combining efforts into one entity, one business, you're able to do that at this point.
Okay. So this includes then parents, children, spouses, siblings, domestic partners. Is that accurate?
Yes. Mhm.
Is there what is the rationale behind that? I can see it like with spouses, because then you're clearly part of the same unit, but like parents and children or siblings who may not have even been in communication with one another.
Yeah, we received that same concern, and we explored a lot of these, policy decisions, but we understand that there are concerns, like sometimes there are family members that have not spoken to each other for years or have no connection, but they're still, related. However, we understand it's a concern, and that was one of the decisions that we've made, but at this point, that's what the rules are stating.
Okay. Before we close up, I wanted to open up and see if anyone had any questions or last points.
I actually have a recurring question that's happening to a lot of my clients that are in that conversion phase, right? And that is, the rules say that you can add on new new owners or investors, right, during the conditional phase, but that the majority ownership interest has to remain the same. And so the question is, how much, for lack of a better word, can you sell of your business during that conditional phase? Is it 49%? Is it, and especially if the transaction doesn't affect your certification. So for example, if you're a minority owned business and you sell to another person that qualifies for that certification, does it matter if you sell more than 51% or more than a majority interest, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. And so don't have the answer to that, but we will get you the answer back to that. I haven't heard a scenario of that just yet. A lot of these, right, are hypotheticals, and sometimes, it has to happen, right, in order for us to clarify and make sure we have the necessary resource documents and FAQs on our website. And so we will get you an answer back to that and include that in a final data or a final slide deck for you all as well. But I do want to say that if you are looking to add on new ownership, you want to make sure that you don't change your priority designation, but to something that specific and technical, we can get you an answer back to that.
No, that would be great, because I've had this situation with several clients, and I've had other attorneys ask the question as well. And that's, now that people are in this crunch, right, where they're either unable to secure property or unable to secure financing, a lot of them are talking to other groups and trying to merge, right, or join other entities. And I guess the question is, how much, and I know you can only be an owner in one license, but where let's say you're in the process of applying for an annual, so you haven't submitted an application yet, but you have one element, right, that, or one component of the process that another applicant is missing. Where can you join together without affecting that, limitation that the majority interest has to remain the same as when you first applied? And then arbitrarily, what is a majority interest if no one person owns more than half of that license? Just putting that out there.
Yeah. So I do want to, again, encourage, kind of from the same framework that we were discussing with Osbert, to please send your questions in to the CRC. We are not walled in and silent. We do want to hear these questions so that we can provide the necessary answers and then get the right resources on our website, especially if we get frequent questions, frequency in the same kinds of questions. It'll really help us really drill down on what the public is most interested in and what clients that you are working with are interested as well. So these kinds of questions, we don't want lawyers are fine, but we don't want them banging their heads against each other and fighting with one another about interpreting the regulations. You can always reach out, and we'll get you to the right department and the right person that can provide the right answer and the context.
Thank you.
One question that actually reminds me, because I've actually written before about it, and I don't know if there's an internal consensus in the CRC on this, but a lot of folks applied for conditional licenses as micro businesses, for instance, because in a micro business, of course, you have to be based in the town where you live or a neighboring town, or 51% of the owners need to be as such. What if you didn't get local approval in your town or a neighboring town, and you no longer could even possibly qualify as a micro business, but you managed to get like local approval 10 miles away? Is there any way to salvage that conditional application, like, and just make it non-micro business, or do you have to start over from scratch? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't think you have to start over. I think you just need to submit to the CRC and just kind of keep us updated to what's happening. We've seen businesses that got an initial or thought they were going to end up here and end up changing somewhere else. So again, to these kind of questions, you always just want to make sure that you're sending those into the CRC, and we'll work with our communications director to make sure that these types of really technical questions, if we can offer, can be put on our website as well.
I will follow up on that. Thank you. Well, yep. Parting thoughts. Awesome.
Parting thoughts. It's a quick two-parter. So the regulations right now just are rolling out the revision of the regs. Is there a timeline for? Is there another review schedule, or is that something that's not programmed into a set timeline from the ordinance? I mean, from the statute.
I'm sorry, Osbert, could you repeat your question? On timeline for what? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. So just how we just had the review of the ordinances and the updated regulations that just came out, is there another date that's set out there in the future that there will be a second review of the regulations, or was that the only one?
So for consumption lounges, which is the one that we are currently in review process, is for the proposed consumption lounges language. That's, that comes to the public comment ends on March 18th. And then we're going to have to, review those comments, provide an answer to those public comments. But that's I guess I want to say that the most recent deadline that's coming up right now. And the rules that I discussed earlier, some of those changes, those are already in place. Those became effective yesterday.
Right, but there's no future a year from now or 2 years from now that they get. There's no set date for them to ever be reviewed. That in statute, I mean.
Not in statute, no. Okay. No, the rules that are in place are in place now, but there's no set statute date for us to revisit the rules.
I do want to take a moment to say that from our executive board here at the Tri-State chapter, we greatly appreciate, your time and the candidness of both yourself, Director McWhite, and Commissioner Cid-Kosso. It really is something that we've gotten great feedback from other events that we've done, and it's just like a real, a charla, it's a regular conversation, and people love that, as do we. So just thank you for that.
Our pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for staying out, working late tonight on this dark March evening. Thank you, Commissioner Cid-Kosso and Director McWhite, Osbert, Orduña, Rosemarie, Moyeno, Matos, and I'm your host, Jennifer Cabrera, and I hope to see you at another NHCC webinar soon.